What's up, UTU Trust Guardians? Welcome to another episode of the UTU Trust Guardian interview series. Here's where we chat with team members, investors, partners, and supporters of UTU to learn more about their backgrounds, what they're building, and how they're helping to increase trust across the entire internet. Today, we are speaking with the Big Data Protocol team, who we partnered with in August. We're here with two of the founders of BDP, Jordan Hauer and Mark Donovick. What's up, guys? Quick overview. We'll definitely get into more detail about BDP, but Big Data Protocol is a DeFi protocol and data marketplace to source commercially valuable data from professional data providers, tokenize it, and make it liquid. We're going to have Jordan and Mark tell us about their backgrounds, dig deeper into what BDP is and how we'll work together, and much more. Guys, welcome to the show. How are things going?
Going pretty well. Just taking a look at the crypto markets and getting some heart palpitations, but I'm more used to the public markets, the equities, and that doesn't make my heart race as much as crypto does.
And yeah, it's we'll say it's the best time to build, right? When the markets are down, put the heads down and build, right?
For sure. We're builders through and through anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. But unless you're talking about the public markets in China with the whole Evergrande debacle happening over there, which seems to be causing ripples worldwide, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
It could be a Lehman Brothers-esque type of an event, or I mean, I don't know if the government's come out and said that they're gonna, cover them or bail them out, but it's definitely going to have some ripple effects over into the US for sure.
Yeah, we're already kind of seeing that a little bit. So cool. So why don't we start by briefly introducing yourselves, both personally and professionally. Mark, why don't you kick it off?
Sure. So I'm Mark Donovick, one of the co-founders of both Amass Insights and Big Data Protocol. Worked on Wall Street ever since I graduated school in Boston. Worked at a systematic hedge fund called QS Investors, which spun out of Deutsche Bank's quantitative strategies group. Actually met Jordan pretty early on when I was an intern. We were both working at hedge funds. He actually brought me out to this bar, and actually super dive bar in East Village. And he came with me to this whole concept of alternative data, and me being in quantitative research, it completely flipped my world upside down. We've been business partners ever since, and been through one hell of a roller coaster.
Awesome.
I'm Jordan Hauer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Amass Insights, and also a co-founder of Big Data Protocol. I started my professional career at Cornell studying information science. Back then, I was actually the first graduating class in the engineering school of that major. Really had a passion for understanding different ways to interpret information and create value from that. And that really led me into a career in finance. I started with a company called Nira Economic Consulting, where we did economic research in usually securities class action lawsuits. They call 10b5 cases, where companies are defrauding investors. And we're doing economic research on the damages in those lawsuits. And that was very much out of my comfort zone, and led me to a career in hedge funds, which I never thought I would be in. And I was the first technical and data focused hire at a fund called Hunter Global Investors, which when I got there was about $1.2 billion under management. Unfortunately, we're going through a drawdown, and by the time I left, we had like maybe 400 million under management. But really learned how those types of investors operated, using fundamental research, things like Bloomberg and FactSet, reading SEC filings, and saw kind of the need for new differentiated sources of alpha.
Interesting. Yeah. So you mentioned you guys founded Amass Insights, which BDP was kind of spawned from. Also, BDP was a fork of Ocean Protocol as well. So tell me how all that came together, what Amass Insights is, how you've kind of gone from Web 2 to Web 3, and then how you connected with your other co-founder, Peter, on BDP. Of course, just everything that you're building with BDP, how it's different from Ocean. I know I just tossed a whole chunk of stuff at you, but just kind of give us the overview of how everything happened.
Sure. Going back to, after working at the hedge fund and realizing that there was need for other sources of data, Mark and I actually pioneered a new type of data. Back then, there was no term alternative data. We were calling it non-traditional data, but it was a email e-commerce transactional data sourced from an email tool that consumers were using to organize their email better, get rid of spam. And it was a free tool, and in the background, we were aggregating and anonymizing their purchase receipts from companies like Amazon or Netflix. And we were the first to ever do that type of research. It was very unique and very valuable to our hedge fund clients back then. Shortly after that monetization exercise, that company was acquired by a subsidiary of Rakuten, the Japanese e-commerce retailer.
Sure.
So that was our first foray in alternative data. Amass was born out of that, but with a much wider view on the types of data that are useful for investors. So at this point, Amass has gathered information and categorized, tagged over 16,000 data providers. Actually, I think we're over 18,000 now. It's hard to keep track. While we were doing that work, Peter was a friend that I met through other friends. We had a kind of a dinner club group, and we were always talking about ideas for businesses. Peter was a lawyer at the time, but he was very into crypto. And in 2017, 18, he decided to give up his main legal career and dive straight into crypto full time. And I was trying to encourage him to do something related to data and tokenizing data. But there wasn't really much of an ecosystem back then. And so we've been talking about ideas for years until in 2020, Peter got really into Ocean and trading data sets on Ocean. And that's where the idea for BDP really got formed.
I think too, just to add to Jordan, Amass's mission has always been democratizing data for the masses, not putting it on a pedestal. We realized we weren't fulfilling that mission. We were working with a small cohort of highly sophisticated institutional hedge funds, and those were the only group that had access to this level of data, especially after the whole GameStop, AMC, Reddit revolution in February. We took a step back. We're like, how can we get it so there's an equal playing field of data across all types of user groups, big or small? And that's also kind of what spawned us to get this on the blockchain, and more importantly, in front of other people, whether it's accessing the data itself for investment research or creating data into its own asset class. So at the very least, people can at least trade on that data.
And just to speak to some of your questions about Ocean, they're a partner of ours as well. We work closely with them, and we built BDP's tech on top of their tech. So everything underneath BDP was built by Ocean, or most of it was built by Ocean, and we really respect those guys. But we realized when we were playing with their marketplace back in late 2020 that there was a lot of, for lack of a better term, just garbage data sets on there.
Yeah.
And we realized that if we married Amass's ability to source valuable, useful data sets with Ocean's tech, we would be able to tokenize really valuable data sets for the first time and allow non-professional users, crypto traders, to make money on those data sets, whether that's by staking or buying or selling data. And so that's that's how we got to BDP. BDP's mission is to tokenize commercially valuable data sets that are being used in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think a lot of people have been going through that. A lot of like Web 2.0 companies are going through that journey that you have been going, and looking at how blockchain can very much democratize access to different things, whether that might be data, or the use of a social network, or in Utu's case, trust. And yeah, I think that's just a journey that every company is eventually going to go through. And I think you and your partners in Ocean are very early in that in this journey, and we're but it's just going to be the way that the world operates, moving forward. And the second thing I learned was that you make great business relationships over dinner clubs and in the bar. Is that accurate?
Even in these days, it's best to make relationships in person in real life.
Absolutely.
And last couple of years have been tough to do that, but
Sure.
I think we're starting.
Everybody always asks me, why am I still in New York City? Well, there's your explanation.
Yep, coming back. All right, so you give us kind of the overview of how BDP came to be. So give us a more detailed breakdown about how the system works and what users can do in your ecosystem. I know you got a couple of pretty interesting mechanisms in there. So give us a lowdown on that.
Sure. So we launched in early March of 2021 with two different tokens: BDP token, which is our utility token for using the ecosystem and our marketplace, as well as our first data collection token called B Alpha. So there's two different main products that we offer, which is a data marketplace, very similar to Ocean, and where we tokenize individual data sets, and you can buy and sell and stake those data sets. And then we also offer, at this point, we have two tokens that represent access to collections of data sets. The first one, as I mentioned, was B Alpha, and there's a collection of data sets that we find very valuable, that have some relation to each other, that can be used in tandem, and as well as B Beta, which is a similar concept, and we actually engineered them to have a similar amount of value within them, even though the market is not valuing them that way. So a little hint there. And there's three main types of actors in our ecosystem. There's the buyers of data, there's the sellers of data, and then there are, I think they're typically crypto traders, but they're basically holders of BDP that are looking to put those tokens to work. And what they can do is they can stake their BDP on the data sets that they think are most valuable or most popular, and be able to try to make a return by staking their BDP.
Yeah. So just to, talking a little bit about those valuable data sets, right? So you talked about getting those data sets in B Alpha, B Beta. Yeah. So what kind of makes them more valuable, or coming from like the professional companies that provide these data, right? Like how are you kind of making sure that those data sets are these valuable data sets and not a lot of like garbage?
Sure. Well, Amass's main business is curating data sets for the very professional institutional communities, large quantitative hedge funds. So we have a specialty in discovering useful data, valuable data, and getting that in the hands of the users of that data in a format that they can digest it. And so we're basically porting that technology and also that experience over to the BDP ecosystem as well.
And also too, I think, some of the data provider partners we've brought into our ecosystem and on the BDP marketplace, I mean, they've already been quite validated from the institutional side. Revelio Labs, They just got a recent round of funding. They're used by numerous financial institutions. What's another one? Vandetrack. So they monitor retail trading flow activity. They're constantly mentioned in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, always referenced. So we're starting with smaller data providers, but as we expand, they're going to be more providers that are widely adopted by both institutions and retailers.
And Amass has a very in-depth kind of vetting process that includes collecting hundreds of different pieces of information from that vendor, as well as going through a compliance process and making sure that they're following all the rules and regulations of that particular location, and so we're able to use that same process for BDP. And just a little hint about something that's coming in terms of knowing a very valuable data set that's coming. We have a new partnership with a company called Exchange Data International. It's not even announced yet, so you're getting the scoop here.
Right.
And it's data that's being used by hundreds and hundreds of financial institutions. It's traditional financial market data, which is a little bit outside of our norm, but it doesn't mean it's not valuable. And it's never been tokenized.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. How are you? Have you seen the uptake of this promise of tokenization of this data as like something that's really been a catalyst for these conversations that you have with these big data and these professional data providers? Like, are they just like, that's awesome? Like, are you just like blowing your minds with this whole tokenization of the data?
I feel like people are starting to wake up to the fact that there's value to be had in the crypto industry in general. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't really understand how it all works, how it all fits together. Yeah. And so that's what we offer to these partners is, we handle all the, kind of upfront work to get your data on the blockchain, and to get your data, valued by the crypto industry. And you don't really have to think about it aside from, collecting a check.
Two things, Mike. I think first, when we go into these conversations, people are obviously, some of them are a little apprehensive to change, but there's two things that stick out. One, a decrease in the sales life cycle. So when Jordan and I, when we engage with one of our hedge fund clients, they onboard a data set, that can take anywhere between 8 to 12 months, depending on the data set. It's from an international source, even longer. Yeah. We're making that process nearly instantaneous, where they can go on our marketplace, immediately download a non-contemporaneous data sample, back test it, and if they like it, they can onboard it. So that's bullet point number one.
Yeah.
Bullet point number two that attracts their interest in our model is a different market segment. So they can now open it up for retail investors to get access to, even if it's just in slices. It's different. So I think those are the two attractive points to them.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, sounds great. So what are you guys focusing on right now? What's your roadmap for the next couple months?
Sure. We've done a soft launch of, I think we're calling it BDP ratings. Basically, we're creating. We have. If you go on our data marketplace, you could see that we have a lot of data sources or data products that are Twitter data sentiment on particular tokens. Yep. And so obviously people post publicly, hey, I think that XRP is going to be up 10% or down 10% in the next couple of years, and we've been actually vetting these influencers to see if their calls were right or wrong. Nice. Going back in time. So we already had the data. Now we realize that we can actually show our users, hey, this is an influencer you should actually listen to because they've made these 10 calls that were correct over the last 5 years. And that's been a big hit with our community so far. We have some new IDOs that we're onboarding. IDOs is an initial data offering. That's when we bring a new data set onto our BDP marketplace. And we're going to be bringing bigger and better data sets on our BDP marketplace. I mentioned one provider earlier, EDI, but we also have a proprietary Amass data set that we launched just one slice of that at the moment, which is our thought process was, hey, these data sets are great, but some of these less sophisticated users of data are having trouble analyzing even like a CSV file. So why don't we just give them the answer? Actually do the analysis for them. And so we're boiling down a proprietary data set into basically a beat or a miss on an earnings announcement. So we launched Weight Watchers, where basically you can see whether our data set is telling you that Weight Watchers is going to beat or miss their earnings. And it's one number, it's kind of one signal. And if you pay for that data set on our platform, you get that answer.
Yeah, and I think the underlying data source behind it is we're scraping millions of receipts from high frequency shoppers. Initially, we have around 26 publicly traded stocks that we're tracking right now that have been fully back tested. The history goes back to 2014 for most of the securities. But if you look at some of the case studies that we post, including for Weight Watchers, if you have known this information, a month before their earnings announcement, you would have made a killing. So we're trying to create a derivative product from this, make it super simple for anybody to really understand and accessible to the retail side.
Very cool. Very cool.
Just to add to a couple more things we're working on. We're multi-chain already. We're on BSC. We have a port to BSC. We're looking to get on Polygon as well. We have a BDP spec stablecoin through a partner of ours, and we have to keep up with Ocean's updates. They're launching a V4 of their platform later this year, which I think the biggest things for us are the role-based access control, data farming, and data NFTs. So we're going to be keeping up with that and integrating those new updates.
Yeah, we're integrating with Ocean as well, and so we gotta stay on top of those V4 updates. And they were great. Like you said, they were the ones who actually mentioned you guys to my initial. It was my initial conversation with Bruce Pan, and they told me about what you guys were building, and you guys had like a crazy amazing launch. And I think it was like 6 billion in total value locked or something insane like that. I was like, hey, let's reach out to these guys. I connected with Peter, and then I think Mark, you had reached out to us a bit later. So this was definitely meant to happen.
What's funny is I actually found you guys during that crazy launch. I couldn't sleep for obvious reasons, and I got the idea for something similar to UTU. And I was like, this has to exist already. So I started Googling around, and you guys were the only company that I found doing it.
Awesome. Well, that's a very perfect segue into the next question. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little about the partnership. What were your thoughts, Jordan, when you were thinking about what UTU is and doing the search, and then what was how are we going to work together, and take that away.
Sure. So Amass has been, vetting providers and companies for many years now. And we do that in our own proprietary way, collecting a bunch of pieces of information that are really interesting and useful for our professional end clients. And there's a lot of different elements to that, but there's a lot more that could be done to, gather information on a counterparty. And whether that's through public information on the blockchain, whether that's through public information in government filings. And there's just a lot of different pieces of information out there that could be used to come up with a score for the trust of an entity, or for even the value of that entity in general. And so the idea with working with UTU is we would like to integrate your guys' trust API into our BDP data market to show the trust of each of the data providers and a score next to their name. So you can sort, for example, you could sort each data set by the score of the UTU score in order for you to kind of get to the most valued or most trusted data sets as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think also just in addition to that, it's I think in addition to kind of this trust score, just a little bit more, provide a little bit more context too, like pull out the insights. Just, similar to kind of what you do for the Weight Watchers, those calls, right? It doesn't really boil down into it's like a buy or sell, or are they going to beat earnings or not? But it's like, all right, well, this is a trusted provider because this company did this that really well, or did that really well. So more context around what why that company might have trustworthy data sets and things.
Yeah, you guys do a great job of boiling down the trust of an entity into one quantitative score, whereas Amass has done a good job of boiling down qualitative factors in terms of a data provider's trust. And so, the marriage of the two is just very natural.
Yep, absolutely. So very cool. Love what you guys are building. I think,
and hopefully we'll be able to kind of integrate each other's, metadata to come up with a more kind of integrated score from both entities.
Yeah, and also like our protocol is about data, right? It is obviously we're very much about privacy, but you already have the blessing from all these companies about to be able to use their data. So there's going to be a kind of mutual benefits for us being able to leverage the data that you already have to be able to build our protocol and make our protocol that much stronger and that much more accurate. So all right, so again, I think I love the journey between the Web 2.0, Web 3.0. You are bringing a lot of these other companies from the 2.0 world over into the blockchain world. Yeah, I love what you guys are building there. So all right, let's move on to the quick fire question. So I will ask you 3 questions in succession to learn more about you. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
On the dark side.
All right. Tell us something unique and interesting about you that not many people may know. Mark, why don't you go?
Ooh, that's a good question. I played varsity chess throughout high school, and Lakeside, which is the school that Bill Gates and Paul Allen went to, they were the only team to beat us in state. Yeah, I actually still play with my brother Dana. We play chess every night after work.
There's like a big chess thing going on in DeFi. I know like Robert Leshner is like big in chess.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of just play, they play like games on chess.com, or I don't know if there's a decentralized version of chess, but yeah, just check that out. Get in there.
I'd invite any one of those guys to challenge me in chess.
All right, there it is. We're gonna have to tag those guys. Jordan?
For me, I guess because I'm a first generation American, and despite the way I look and the way I sound, and that really has I think engendered a real work ethic and drive to succeed for me. Based largely on my parents' immigrant mentality. My friends might say it's because I was the shortest kid in school growing up, which is another thing that people don't really know, because I'm normal height now. And my friends will joke that I have a Napoleon complex, but I think it's more about my parents.
I hear that. Yeah. Same here. I'm the first generation American, and yeah, that it just really instills a really strong work ethic, and like you feel pretty lucky to be able to do at least I do, to feel lucky being able to do the work that I do now, and not the work that my parents did, which is much more difficult. But yeah, that's I think is a great
Be able to work on what you're passionate about.
That's right. That's right. So, all right, if you can chat with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why? Mark?
Anthony Bourdain.
It's a good one. Why is that?
You know what? I don't know if you saw the recent documentary, but it's really compelling of what one person, how much of an impact that he made on numerous people's lives, blue collar workers to, anybody that hadn't really traveled so much in the past. And he inspired me to travel, to very distant places like Vietnam, Cambodia, and it's changed my life. So
don't lie, you just want to party with him.
That's true. That's the second component.
Yeah, and talk about doing what you love, right? Like he gets to travel around the world, eat all this different food, and talk about it. So that's amazing.
Oh yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah, Jordan, how about you?
Well, putting aside my father, who passed away a few years ago and was a role model of mine, definitely Bill Gates. I've always, admired him and thought he was kind of the most brilliant person in the world. So I'd like to learn, more about his approach to like innovating in like a very nascent industry, but also, maintaining profitability in that company, because that's what I'm striving to do, and it's definitely a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last one. What is something that you believe but few others agree with?
I've actually been asked this question a few times, probably in the last like 20 years.
What?
I would have to change. Question. I know. I would have to change this question too, because, initially, so I read a book, it's by Thomas Friedman called The World is Flat. He proclaimed that the future is going to be driven by globalization, openness, and scalability. And I think, in some use cases, it's starting to revert. I think, for instance, PPE will not be controlled by an external country like China. But I think more so, more importantly, the future will be shaped in greater magnitude by technological innovation. Instead of scaling on what's worked in the past to other geographies, I think, especially in a world where resources are scarce, globalization without technological innovation would simply just be unsustainable.
Yeah.
But then I read Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, and he addresses this exact same question with a very similar answer. So I feel that's a cop out. So I guess my second more current answer would be, I was speaking to a local prominent venture capital firm here in Seattle at an event probably about a year ago. Yeah, it was about a year ago. But they had contracted an outsourced engineering firm that had invested in to do a technology and code audit. And we were speaking back and forth just pretty much about the standard due diligence process of startups. And although it's very multivariate, the concept of looking at data as an evaluation metric was outlandish to them. They want to stick to the very traditional principles of cash flow analysis and those other financial metrics. But my thought is, I think in the near future, the value of data will be equally, if not important, than most of these major financial metrics when evaluating a company.
So you're saying the value of the data that these companies create? Or correct. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that's yeah, on the surface, you would just think that's almost a derivative of their kind of operations, right? But that could be the actual signal that.
Well, and like here's a like a real world example, which Jordan pointed to earlier in the conversation. We were working with an email management app. They had zero revenue, right? But essentially we found out by looking at their data set and what we were pulling in from email receipts with a large enough panel, which was like 3.5 million users back tested, that would be super valuable to an investor.
Yeah.
And priced out at, $250,000 a license. Like, they didn't know they were sitting on this valuable data. Like, they were hoping to have advertising as their main source of revenue. And once we uncovered that by looking at their data, it completely opened it up to a wider gate of potential buyers and eventually Rakuten. So
the value of a company's data should be sitting on the company's balance sheet.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just a hidden intangible asset. It's really hard to value it. That's the kind of main roadblock. Right. But it's also just a culture shift that needs to happen.
Yeah. But you're putting it on the open market for it to be valued, right? So
exactly. I mean, there's automatic price discovery, so that hopefully will help create this new asset class.
Yeah. Very cool.
But for me, one thing I believe is that my beloved New York Jets will win a Super Bowl in my lifetime.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no one believes that. I think that's the best answer we've had.
I guess I have to live long enough, right?
I'm originally from New York, and I'm a Giants fan. And and I do have plenty of Jets fans, and we always talk smack to each other. But I think
at least they won a championship in your lifetime.
Yeah, two of them, a few of them, but two more recently. But like, we're both pretty much right now in not good shape at all.
No, we aren't.
It's tough.
We just got to get on the Seahawks bandwagon with Mark.
There you go.
That's right. That Russ Cook. All right, that's all we got. That was a lot of fun. Jordan, Mark, thank you so much for taking part in this interview and telling us your story. Tell us a little bit more of where the UTU community can learn more about Big Data Protocol.
Sure. You can go to our website, bigdataprotocol.com. Also, our data marketplace is market.bigdataprotocol.com. We're on Twitter as well, @BigDataProtocol. And if you want to learn more about our other business, Amass Insights, it's also very simple, Amass Insights, AMASS insights.com. And we're on Twitter at the same handle, @Amass Insights.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, Trust Guardians, we hope that you enjoyed that interview with Jordan and Mark of Big Data Protocol. Please hit that like button if you did. There'll be many more interviews like these, so make sure you hit the subscribe notification button so you don't miss them. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much, guys. Great conversation.
Thanks, guys.
Had a lot of fun.